T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Hey, everybody. Welcome again to the Greatness Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Weiss. I'm a life coach, speaker, author, and founder of the Greatness Movement based here in Phoenix, where it's our mission and purpose to guide you to be the greatest version of yourself. That's what we all need, isn't it? Remember, please, if you're watching live on Facebook right now, please share the show. We're going to be talking about what to look for on a first date. So if you have a bunch of single friends, they're gonna really enjoy this. They're gonna get some insights on how to read people and all of that kind of stuff. So if you missed the show, you can always catch us on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeart. Just look for the Greatness Movement Podcast. And as always, I download all the shows onto my YouTube channel. Just search for Kenny Weiss. Please subscribe to that. Pardon me, I'm always posting other videos as well. So it's a great free resource for you to gain a bunch of valuable information and tools and skills to live in your greatness. Finally, please go to the greatnessmovement.com website and subscribe. That way, whenever I'm doing an event or a new group is starting or something like that, you are on the email list and you're kept aware of everything that we're doing here at the Greatness Movement. And one last thing, for those of you in the Phoenix area, I am doing a very small kind of private event tomorrow night up in North Scottsdale. And it's located at the American Center for Natural Medicine. The address is 15170 North Hayden Road, Suite 6B. It's in Scottsdale, 85260. And it's going to be on communication. And I'm going to cover what most people don't realize. This is why communication fails in business and in personal relationships. Almost everything out of your mouth, you're talking to yourself, not the other person. Really. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it to you, that's what we all do. And that's why we don't understand anybody. So if you're in sales, if you're single and struggle with finding a mate and communication, you're going to find out why. If if your whole life or business is around connecting with people, you need to be there. It's only 15 seats. That's it. This is a tiny private event. It's free. That's the beauty of it. No complaints about money or anything like that. It's at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. That's Monday. Is that the 26th, I believe? Now, to sign up, you have to call. You have to call the American Center for Natural Medicine. The phone number is 480-779-7755. Once again, 480-779-7755. One last time, 480-779-7755. Someone just said it's tomorrow's the 25th. So Monday the 25th, and they say you have to repeat a number 3 times for people to remember it. So hopefully you remember the number, and you're going to call first thing in the morning, reserve your seat before it books up. But you'll be blown away at what you're going to learn about communication. This will transform your friendships. It'll transform your personal relationships. And it'll transform your business. It's information I've never seen anybody talk about when it comes to communication. It'll blow you away. To me, of all the events I do, there's one other topic I really like, but this is my favorite because of the impact it has on people's lives immediately. They're just blown away. So if that's something that interests you, I hope to see you there. So let's get into it. Dating, right? everyone's favorite thing. Well, unless you're looking on Facebook, everybody's always complaining about it and how awful everybody is. Let's face it, it is awful. And one of the reasons is this, the internet, technology. Technology has ruined interpersonal communication. It's a big reason dating is so terrible. People don't know how to communicate. It's now, socially acceptable to ignore people and be disrespectful. You get an email, you don't respond for several days. Someone texts you, you ghost them, and no, everyone settles for it. If you, oh my God forbid you try and call somebody. Oh, like that, somebody won't date you because you actually tried to connect with them, So technology has been a complete destruction. I know they say it brings people together. It does the exact opposite. It alienates people. Now, do you get in touch with certain people or kind of cross paths? But like I was in an event last night and several people came up. I know you. You're that Facebook guy. You're that greatness movement guy. And it was like, wait a minute, do I know you? Because let's face it, most people, pictures aren't recent or they've just climbed a mountain and now everyone's in ball gowns. It's like, wait a minute, this is kind of familiar. Do I know him? Do I not know him? And so I guess it helps in some recognition. I get that a lot when I'm out in public. But it also creates a real barrier because now people live behind that wall. I watched it last night at that event. It was fascinating to me how probably 300 to 500 people and how many people were just standing there not talking or grabbing their phones. Very little interaction. People even sitting at a dinner table, very little talking going on. It's fascinating. Mostly people kind of moving and staring, looking. It's like that's what technology has done. We just stare, we scroll, we don't interact. And it was almost like watching everybody in person scroll, just their heads moving and scanning, scrolling. And yet they're standing, they're swarmed by people around them. And nobody's talking. It's just fascinating to me. I mean, because of what I do, I'm always observing human behavior. And I see that everywhere. Just go to a restaurant and I'll take myself out to dinner and I'll just sit and observe tables and the lack of communication. So at any rate, it breaks my heart. But that's one of the great reasons to come to the event tomorrow night, learn how to communicate. But we're also going to talk, what do you want to look for on a first date? What are some key signs? Because so many people get invested in a relationship and then, 2 months, 6 months, 5 years later go, what the heck was I thinking? And almost always on a first date, a person shows us everything about them. But because we don't know what to look for, we don't see it. Well, and a lot of it is we go into denial. We see what we want to see. And women have always been, I guess, scarlet lettered with this of, oh, I'll change him. I'll make him get over that. Men do it too. Both sides do it. I'm guilty of it. And, you just go, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. So that's where I want to start. Before you go on a first date, there's some certain responsibilities you have in yourself. And I'm going to touch on that before I get into things to look for in another person. The first thing is you have to know your needs and wants. Well, most of the time when I ask that question, people don't even know what that means. They can't even express them. And so they don't really even know what they want in a relationship. They just want someone nice. What most people will describe about a relationship is, I want that butterfly feeling. I want to know they have my back at all times, no matter what. All these platitudes that aren't even realistic. They're not healthy. For someone to have your back all the time is not healthy in a relationship. That is not what you want. If someone says that in a profile, run. Please run. That's too much work. So there's tip number one. If someone lists that, you want to move on to somebody else, because that's such a lack of emotional maturity and such a high level of codependence that unless they're willing to do a lot of work, that's a lot of work if someone has that belief, because that's not loving. Have my back at all times. Well, I just cursed somebody and ran them off the road, and you want me to have your back when you acted like a 2-year-old? I wouldn't call that love. I wouldn't be loving you if I condoned poor behavior. That's not love. But yet that's what you watch reality TV. You see that all the time. Guys and girls act like complete idiots, and they're like, my friend should have my back. Well, no, they shouldn't. If they were truly a friend, if something goes against their own morals and values, the last thing they should do is sacrifice their morals and values to, quote, be your friend or be your boyfriend or girlfriend. That wouldn't be loving at all. So really sit down and think what matters to you. And so that gets you into what are negotiables and non-negotiables. Most people never consider this in a relationship. But what things are you okay with? So, like, are there certain things around money? Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Is that negotiable or non-negotiable? Because most people break up. Money is one of the biggest reasons couples break up. So you need to know what kind of person you are with money. What's your view on it? And that's something you want to pay attention to in the other person, because most spouses end up fighting over money. They have different values, and one spends and thinks it's okay to run up credit card debt. They're just like, what's the big deal? Money grows on trees. It's always worked out. I'm fine with a little debt. Someone else is like, never. I won't buy anything unless I can pay cash for it. Well, you guys are going to brawl. It's not going to go well. So there are other certain things, like I know I have one: table manners. I know this is silly, and a lot of people out there are probably going to judge me, but if a woman has bad table manners, I don't care. I'm done. And I have to tell this story. I have to throw myself under the bus. This is hysterical. This is, I don't know, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I met this woman, and to me, oh my God, I was speechless. I couldn't believe this woman wanted to go out on a date with me. She, to me, was the most exotic, stunning woman I had ever seen at the time. I was flabbergasted. I was, from face to figure, I was like, oh my God. Like, I couldn't contain myself, and I could barely speak to her. I was just I felt, back then my self-esteem was so low. I felt so out of my element that this woman is a goddess, and how the heck am I even sitting with her? And I'll never forget this. It still cracks me up. We went to dinner, and she ordered soup before dinner, and instead of salad. And the waiter brings it over, places it in front of her. And I wish, for those of you listening, you can't see this. For those of you on Facebook, she grabbed her soup spoon like a bulldozer. You know how people, they create a fist and the utensil comes out the side, So she grabbed it like that. She put her elbows on the table, and she dropped her head like an inch from the bowl of soup. And back away from, or turn the sound down, because I'm not going to exaggerate. This was the sound she made as she literally, her face is inches above the bowl, elbows all over the table, and she just starts going literally that loud. And I froze. I'm literally screaming inside. I'm like, no, please, no. Like, please stop. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, you're the goddess I've dreamed of all my life, but I will never be able to kiss you. I'm done. Like, please don't do this. Like, I was screaming inside. It was so hysterical. Like, I look back now and I can like picture my face just frozen. It would have been like the perfect movie moment. And So, and then, now the new thing is like, my father and mother came from old world manners and how you hold utensils, napkins, pulling out chairs, standing up when a woman leaves the table. Um, there are certain times you use your knife to cut something, certain times to use your fork, all these different things. And, now the new thing is everyone, they kind of glop their elbows on the table and they shovel food onto their fork with their knife. That is so inappropriate. And then they turn the fork over and, like, I'm sorry, and chew with their mouth open, talk with their mouth full. I'm done. I'm just done. That is non-negotiable. Now, it may seem silly to a lot of people. Maybe there are a lot of people I'm offending because that's exactly how they eat. And they think it's, you watch these food shows and I see all these food critics and they look like barbarians, the way they eat. It's like kind of cool to eat that way. But as far as old world manners, it's butchery. And that's just the way I grew up. So they're not the problem. I'm the problem. They can eat any way they want, and it's perfectly fine. It's my issue, and it's an issue I don't want to change. It is non-negotiable in me. I refuse to give it up. So again, they're not the problem. I am. But see, I have that need and want. I know that's non-negotiable. If I ever go on a date and I see that, I'll have a pleasant evening. I'll be very kind, but I'm done. It's over. It is not going anywhere. I will never sit across from someone the rest of my life looking at that. I won't do that to myself. I don't care how great everything else would be. Now, some of you think that's silly, but it's important to me. I like someone who cares about manners, and it's non-negotiable. Now, maybe you have other negotiables. What are your hobbies? Politics. I made that mistake. I never considered it in my first marriage. Never came across. Well, we were diametrically opposed when it came to politics. I will not be with someone who isn't at least on the same spectrum as I am politically. I refuse. So that's a non-negotiable for me. Are there certain, now maybe you're in the opposite. Like some people, they want to spend a lot of time together. So like that would be non-negotiable. They want to share hobbies and interests. Others are like, no, I want time alone. Like I want somebody where I spend my weekends off with my buddies or my girlfriends. And so someone who's clingy and needy, don't want that. These are the types of things you need to know about yourself before you ever get on a date. Who are you bringing to the date? So that's the next piece. When you go into a date, how are you talking and feeling about yourself? Are you negative? Are you going, oh my God, there's going to be another one of those and dating never works and everybody this? Well, if that's what you're thinking and feeling, that's what the other person's going to pick up, because I don't want to get into the science of how the brain and body works, but people pick up on that. And so if you're bringing that person into a date, no wonder your dating life sucks. Okay. You will attract people. Everything about you. If you're that negative about yourself and about the potentials of dating, go clean that up before you go on a date again. And you'll start attracting people that are much more positive as well. So that's an aspect you have to look at. Are you expecting failure? And also, how are you framing it? Is this life or death? Like, I've got to find a partner. Are you like that obsessed? Maybe if you're struggling with dating, I really encourage you to back off, especially if you're one of those. I see this on Facebook. I'm done with men. I'm done with women. I'm never dating again. Well, what if you reframed it? Like, look at it. You were just going to sit home and watch another rerun of Seinfeld or something. You get to get dressed. You get to go out, eat a meal with somebody. You get to be in an environment. Like, make it about that. It's an experience. I get to learn about somebody, even if everything they do goes against my needs and wants and negotiables and non-negotiables. Isn't it fascinating to sit across from somebody who has absolutely no similar interests to mine? Like, what an experience to learn about, like, turn it into an investigation of, so, take the woman I brought up, the way she ate. So tell me more about that. Like, learn. Like, wouldn't that, just enjoy it for that. Don't make it such a big deal. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy risking, sharing who you are with somebody. Make it about that. At some point you're going to die. If you're sitting there afraid to go on a date because they're all going to end bad or whatever, think about your deathbed. How do you know? How many experiences have you walked away from because of that negative thinking and feeling? How many opportunities have you robbed yourself of? And then you're going to be on your deathbed going, geez, look at all the things I left behind in this world that I never chose to experience. Is that a life you want to live? That's not me. I've met some people or been introduced. I'm like, this ain't going anywhere. But what else am I going to do? What the hell? Maybe I'll learn something. At least I'm getting out. I'm going to have I know I'm going to bring a great conversation to the night. Maybe they don't. Ooh, that could be fascinating. How would I deal with that? That's how I see it. What a wonderful opportunity to learn about somebody else. So try reframing it. If you're really struggling with dating and you're real negative about it, see if you can get a different perspective about it. Okay, so now we've talked about who you're going to bring. Let's get into really the point of this broadcast, which is what to look for on a first date. Well, one of the first things to look for is body language. Okay? What are they doing? Because only 7% of all communication is words. And that's what most people focus on. It's like, to me, it's a waste of time. I almost ignore everything everybody says, especially on a first date, because most of it's BS, because they're afraid and nervous. So they're trying to tell me what they think I want to hear versus who they are. So I'm listening for tone more than anything. Tone will really tell me truth, not words. More importantly, I'm looking for body language. All right. Body language communicates everything. How are they sitting? Are they sitting directly facing towards you? Are their toes pointing towards you? That's very important. Or have they turned? Right? Are their arms crossed? Like, watch them as you have discussions. When you say something, do their arms cross? What just happened inside them? I do this all the time. When I listen to people, I listen to their bodies more than I listen to their words. Another thing to look for is, are they leaning forward? Are they someone who's leaning forward is interesting. It was hysterical. I did this once. There was a woman I went on a date with, and when I would lean forward, she would lean back. I'm going to skip ahead. There's another aspect. Like, if you want to see if maybe you're sitting across from somebody and they're checking off all the boxes. Ooh, he or she works in my needs and wants, and she works in my negotiables and non-negotiables. I'm getting interested. Well, if you want to start finding out if they're interested in you, start making subtle changes to your body language. There's a mirroring aspect in our brain, which if we're connected with somebody, we will follow them. Our bodies will follow them. Our words could be saying the exact opposite, but if our bodies match up, you're connected. You know what they're really saying. So I do this all the time. I'll make subtle shifts. I'll lean on my left side and then watch what they do. Do they cross their arms? Do they, it happens all the time. I'm very good at connecting with people. So almost always instantly, I notice people, if I move, they move. Whatever I do, they copy me. They follow me nonstop. In any environment, this happens to me. Because another thing is I mentioned this, I think I mentioned it in a show last week. Maybe it was in the speech. If you want to build trust and connection with somebody when you're talking to them, look in their left eye. I always do this. And I find most people try and look in your right eye because they're afraid to connect. But whenever I speak to someone in any form, gas station, whatever, I look in their left eye. It connects to a part of our brain that builds connection and intimacy. So I'm always offering myself, in a sense, intimately. I'm here to connect. I'm safe. I want to connect. And because I know how this works, I'm always looking in somebody's left eye. So that's something to pay attention to on a first date. Do they return that? Are they looking in your left eye also? Or are they looking away, looking up? Or do they refuse to look in your eyes? And if they do look in your eyes, do they primarily look into your right eye? That will tell you a lot about how nervous. And so I don't want to pin them with conditions, because too much, certain body language would tell me, oh, they're just nervous. They're really excited to meet me and they don't know what to do. So they're just nervous. That's why they're doing it. Other times, depending on certain body language, I'd go, okay, this person is massively shut down. They're massively hiding. They don't want me to, they're hiding secrets. And so they're doing all these maneuvers to hide who they are. So that's too intricate. Like I'd have to show you for you to be able to teach you, like, do you see the difference between the two? I can't really demonstrate that without somebody here or showing you, a model of it. But so that's one thing to look for. Where are they looking? What's their body language? Okay. When you make a movement, like if you move back, I was telling that story, that woman, as I move forward, she'd move back. As I move back, she'd move forward. It was a constant yo-yo. It was hysterical. But then all of a sudden I leaned on one side. Well, she leaned on one side too. And so as I kept sort of playing this little dance, what I finally realized was she was very attracted to me. And it was overwhelming. When I would move forward, it was overwhelming to her. Because everything else she was doing, left, she's looking in my left eye, she's connecting, following me, everything I'm doing. But she was so nervous about how attracted she was with me. She was backing away because it was overwhelming her. And the proof of that was this, literally, as I started to back off, she just, boom, right to the front of the table. Like she didn't want me away from her. And so what I learned to help her calm down, I stayed back, or I moved forward very, 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 very slowly so she couldn't see it or recognize it. It was very soft and slow. I was helping her nerves calm down so that we could have a good conversation and she could feel safer. So the next time you go on a date, watch somebody as you speak. What's their body doing? Okay. And as you move, what are their movements? All right. It's one of the greatest ways in business too, how to connect to somebody. What are they doing? If they come up to you and they're angled and you were facing them, I will always turn to an angle because they don't want to face me. So I make them comfortable by joining them. See, the reason I'm able to create comfort with somebody is I'm always trying to join them where they are. I'm not trying to force them into where I am. And that's one of the mistakes people make in communication. One, they're just completely unaware of what they're doing. They're not thinking about this type of stuff. And so you're going on these dates, men or women, and you're overpowering somebody. You're being offensive. It's not confidence. It's you're staking territory. And so you're making yourself incredibly unsafe. And so you have to be aware of not only what are they doing, but how are you presenting yourself to them? I care much more about how I present myself physically, meaning my body, than I do the words I choose. Okay? So that's a key thing to look for on a first date. Now, let's get into questions. You generally hear this from women, that men, especially more men in my age bracket, they go on a date and they spend the whole 3 hours telling you how great they are, all the things they've accomplished in business, all the cars they have, all the houses they have. It's on and on and on about them. All right. Well, that would be a red flag. Now, again, coupled with body language, are they just scared to death? And so it's massive insecurity. A lot of people think it's because they're bloviating. They think so much of themselves. In many cases, it's the exact opposite. They feel so insecure about themselves. But I had a great experience. My second wife, when I met her, see, I almost always when I meet somebody, all I do is ask questions. I very rarely say much about me. I introduce my name, and I immediately pick up on something in their body language, their clothing, something, and I always start off with a question. Again, I want to know about somebody. Like, I'm fascinated by people. So one of my, what question I tend to ask is like, what's great in your life? Like, I want to know about you. And then that, in their description, or their reply, they will always say something like, well, I got this new job I was really excited about. I pick up on the emotional word excited. And so then that's what I'm always looking for in a conversation is markers. I'm always looking for a market. Ooh, they said they were excited. So then my next question becomes, so what about that excited you? Why does this type of job excite you? Well, because it allows me to express who I am and things that really matter. Oh, really? What sort of things matter to you? Boom, boom. I'm just constantly paying attention. And as they reply, as they move, I join them. I'm letting them know I'm safe. I'm here. I'm invested in you. I want to hear about you. Okay. Now, I'll never forget this. My second wife, we met, and I took her to a restaurant. I picked her up, or we met at a restaurant. It was full or something. So we hopped in my car and went somewhere else, to a different place. And I finally, I don't know, it was probably about 2 hours in. I had to use the restroom. And I walk into the restroom, and as I'm about to leave, I'm washing my hands. I look in the mirror and I'm like, this ain't going anywhere. This is done. She's incredibly attractive, but it's all about her. Like, for that 2 hours, she hadn't asked me a single question, nothing. And so men and women, this is something to pay attention to. Now, when I walked back out and sat down, she said, okay, I'm done. I'm not answering any more questions. I'm not talking anymore. I want to hear all about you. Well, I had been dating for about 6 months. It was the first woman I'd ever run into who said that. Most women never ask. They just don't, at least the women I was dating at the time. But I have noticed that. And that caught my attention. I went, because that was on one of my needs and wants. Somebody who cares to learn about me, somebody who likes me. Well, that was the first person in the, I don't know, maybe it was a year of dating, who asked me about me. So those are things to look for. If someone's going on and on about themselves and never asking about you, and if their body language shows that they're disinterested in you, then to continue on, I don't know why you would. And so that's something to pay attention to. Now, one of the single greatest questions you can ever ask anybody on a date is this one. So what's your pet peeve? What are your pet peeves? I love that question. And here's why that question is so powerful. Because remember, for those of you, many of you have read my book or watched my shows. Whenever we judge, blame, or criticize, all we're ever doing is talking about ourselves. So what you're going to hear, and then if you want to get more specific, say something like this. Ask this question. So what are your pet peeves when it comes to dating and relationships? And they'll go on and on about all of the things they hate. And in that moment, what you're going to discover is all the things they do. You will you're going to save that question for like an hour in, and then ask it, so what sort of pet peeves do you have about dating and relationships? And literally, they're going to start saying, I hate people who talk all the time. I hate people who won't listen. People are judgmental. And literally, they're going to say everything they just did in the first hour. It's so fascinating. It's like 100, it's foolproof. And then especially even after you ask that question, if you get into, so tell me about some of your past relationships, they are literally going to describe everything they just said they hated that they did in a relationship. It's fascinating how denial works. So you want to learn a boatload about somebody on a first date. That is universally the best question you can ever ask. Please write it down, put it in your little notebook, share it with every man or woman you know. The best question you can ever ask is, what are your pet peeves when it comes to dating and relationships? And you are going to find out exactly what they do when they date and how they perform, how they act in a relationship. They're going to give you the keys to the kingdom, and they don't even realize it. Because again, nobody teaches the stuff I teach. So that, please, anything they get negative on or judge, they're telling you about them. And that's what you can expect. That's the treatment you can expect if you decide to pursue a relationship with them. Okay? All right, I skipped ahead and touched on this part. Listen to their story and pick out elements to ask deeper questions. I already gave an example of that. You know, questions like, so what is it you liked about that? Why does that part interest you? That's how you keep a conversation going. That's what you're looking for from somebody. Here's something else. You see this a lot on a first date. People will talk about their past relationships. If somebody's puking a sob story, and well, there's two ways. I see this a lot in dating. People will puke how bad their life is. They'll give you a life story, like a sobbing life story. Not always, but almost always. That is a narcissist. It's a manipulative ploy to suck you in. And they're using false empathy to prey on you. So that's a key to look for, is people who gut themselves on a first date about their life history and how awful it's been, their dating history, their marriages, whatever it was, how awful somebody treated them. That's a huge red flag. My body chemistry, if somebody did that, is, whoa, I'm moving way back. I'm creating some distance. And it's funny too, when I do that, they usually come further. They are trying to suck me in. It's fascinating how a narcissist will work, because they're feeling powerless, and so they'll come at me even more to try and get me to join them. So pay attention to that. Somebody who's sharing way too much information about their relationships, and especially a sob story, or way too much information about their life history, and especially if it's a sob story, more than likely, not always, but more than likely, you are dealing with a heavy, heavy narcissist. And it's a manipulative ploy. So be very aware of that. Okay. Now, let's get into some, to me, the fun stuff. Since you all know, if you watch my show enough, every single one of us is codependent. And every one of us is either a love addict or a love avoidant. It's a spectrum, as I talked about before. Peeps, there are pure love addicts, pure love avoidants. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle. We bounce between both roles, one probably more extreme than the other. So here's some things to look out for if you want to find out if someone's a love addict. Okay. Their dating profile. Is it really long? Like, do they go on and on and on and on and on? You know, you see that some people have written a whole novel. That's a massive love addict. Conversely, somebody who has one word or one sentence, love avoidant. Okay. And again, I'm not judging is one better than the other. The question is, remember, going back to the beginning, what are your needs and wants? What are your negotiables and non-negotiables? I have a non-negotiable. I don't do love avoidance. No interest. And I can see it in a profile. If I ever go on a dating site, I can just look at a woman's profile and go, oh, love avoidant, done. So other things to look for, like in a profile, or here's another one for love addicts. When you text somebody and they always have to end the conversation, like you say, okay, great. Look forward to seeing you tonight. And they'll reply, yeah, me too. And you reply, thumbs up. And they reply, thumbs up, smiley face. Like they can't stop the communication. They have to keep replying. That's a love addict. Conversely, a love avoidant, you'll say, looking forward to seeing you tonight. Very polite. They won't respond. They won't even give it notice. It's too much. Whatever. Leave me alone. I'm busy. That's another characteristic of a love avoidant. If you find somebody who says they're busy all the time, they're not busy. Nobody's ever busy. No one's ever too busy to send a reply or a quick phone call. And you know how I know that? Because if you tell me you're the type who's too busy to always respond, okay, then look at your phone. Did you not text anybody in the last 3 days? Did you not call anybody? Did you not watch a single TV show? Did you not sit in traffic anywhere and listen to music? Did you not read about, sorry, no one is ever busy. That's a love avoidant. All right. So you get to decide, maybe that's perfect for you. Maybe that's what you're looking for, is someone who won't reply. Maybe you're both love avoidance and that's what you want. Then that's what you're looking for. Very short communication, very little communication. They like to say I'm busy. Another thing to look for is they will have lots of animals, or animals are big to them. Dogs, cats, whatever it is. Animals are a priority. That's a love avoidant. Their kids, I see this on profiles, both men and women all the time. First sentence, my kids are my life. Okay. Well, that's because they're a love avoidant and they're going to suffocate their kids and create other love avoidance. So do you want to be a mistress to a man or woman who's in a married relationship with their children? Maybe you do. Okay, fine with me. Or same thing, I'm all about dogs and my animals. Well, again, they are, that's what I mean. People tell us, they are letting you know, I am already married and in a primary relationship with my animals. You will always be second. If that's okay with you, knock yourself out. What are your needs and wants? Pay attention to that. As far as other things to pay attention to, when it comes to, how do I want to do that? If you're, I'm debating two different ways to do this. If you're struggling with picking the same type of person, then the other thing I want you to do is look back and look at what's attracting you. Like, here's something I had to realize. This is why I love avoidance. Okay. Like I can still see a love avoidant and go, man, that's sexy, because that's part of the draw of a female love avoidant. Many of them dangle the carrot of sex. That's part of their MO. They dress very seductively. They act very seductively. They're very sexualized. All right. It's how they get power. Men, love avoidance, use money, their job. They'll have pictures of their Ferrari or their house, or, them on trips. It's all about status and power. That's what they're using. That's their sex appeal. that they're trying to sell the love addict. And female love avoidance, they dangle that carrot, but they're very complicated. You get half truths. See, that's the other thing with the love avoidant, because they can't lose power. They tend to lie by omission. Some directly lie, but many of them lie by omission, which means you have to specifically ask the right question. Like you could say, they said, yeah, I went out last night. Really? Did you have anything to drink? No. Now, if you ask them, did you have a gin and tonic last night to drink? They'd say, yes, I did. And they would justify and go, well, you didn't ask me what kind of drink I had. See, and what drew me to a love avoidant, and this is for, if you're a love addict, this is something you want to look for. If you're meeting somebody on a first date and you're analyzing like their text messages and or even constantly asking them questions. So what is it you mean by this? Like you're constantly kind of unsure of what they're trying to communicate. That's a love avoidant. Okay. You're always guessing. Like I finally figured that out. Like part of it, that's what I love about a love avoidant. They're so psychologically challenging, because they're so manipulative. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think most of them aren't even aware of it. Most love avoidants, when we have this discussion, they're completely oblivious because they didn't even know they were a love avoidant. They just thought, oh, I didn't think about it, but they're not maliciously bad, but they're incredibly manipulative because they're so fearful of intimacy. If you remember my other discussions about love addicts and love avoidance primary fear is intimacy, getting close to somebody. And so that's why everything's there's always this veiled secrecy and not enough information. And, it's always gray. And so I finally figured out that even if I'm away from them, if I'm trying to decipher what their motivations are, what they meant by a certain thing, or, what they really, all of that stuff, I somehow got snookered in and I'm chasing a love avoidant. And part of me though had to realize, some of it's fun. It's just fun. The psychological banter, that's why I'm attracted to it, is trying to figure it out, because of my whole childhood, with my mom's alcoholism and my dad's anger. That's why I'm so good at what I do. I became very inquisitive as to why people do what they do. And so it created a gift in me that I can generally figure that out with just about anybody. And so that's why a love avoidant is enticing to me, because they're a puzzle and I want to figure them out. But yet because their defense mechanism is to be detached emotionally, they generally don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it. So it's an unsolvable puzzle because they don't have the answer inside of them. They can never lead you to, it's like the maze, with the different routes to get to the middle. They don't even know the route to the middle because their defense mechanism was to shut down emotionally. Now, again, that's not judgment. That's heartbreaking. So pay attention to that. If you're obsessing about what they might be thinking or doing or meaning before or after a date, then you're probably a love addict and they're probably a love avoidant. And then get to decide, what are your morals and values? What are your needs and wants? What are your negotiables? What are your non-negotiables? Do you maybe you love that psychological challenge and you're kind of like, oh, so this is why I pick them. Yes, there are downfalls, but I didn't realize how much I love this piece. So actually I'm going to be okay with picking love avoidance. I don't know. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. But these are signs to look for. And people will tell you, it's fascinating when you ask them what their hobbies are and their views on simple topics. And I had someone reach out to me once. It wasn't long ago. And they said, what do you do when you told your partner from the beginning that you liked space? and now they're complaining that you spend too much time apart. Well, the person asked the question as though their partner was the problem. They didn't own that they picked somebody who was not okay, who told them from day one they didn't like space. Again, remember how judgment works? The person got in contact with me trying to judge their spouse when the answer was in them. That's what I mean. People tell us who they are from day one and we deny it. This person wanted somebody who liked space, yet they picked someone who doesn't like it. So until they do the deep inner work, that the stuff I talk about in my book, they're going to pretty much be miserable, because the issue isn't with their partner, it's within themselves. They haven't reconciled why they're attracted to that and why they're setting up that self-victimization, because they get so much out of it. So these are things to look for when you're going on dates. And like I said, the biggest key is, one, even the words they use, when there's no judgment in it, take it at face value. Okay? Whenever they're using judgment, criticism, or blame, they're talking about themselves and the pieces of themselves they haven't reconciled and haven't forgiven. Okay? But if they're describing things without any judgment or blame, they are literally telling you, based on who they are in this moment, what they want in a relationship. Don't ignore it. Please don't. That's what kills most people, is they get enamored by looks or some quality, money, sex, whatever it is, and they're like, I can deal with that. Well, if you know your needs and wants, you know your negotiables and non-negotiables, you won't fall for it. So the first step in how to pick a relationship, what to look for on a first date, is look for you. Find you first. Our whole culture is outward focused of, they have to be right and they have to love me. The problem, no, everyone has it backwards. The answer is in the opposite. Who are you bringing on the first date? Make sure you know who that is and get that person prepared. Okay. Then you'll be able to see more clearly. You'll have the self-esteem to recognize, wait a minute, this person's hobbies, politics, and money beliefs and all these other beliefs don't mesh with mine. You'll see it clearly and you'll choose not to pursue it. The next thing to look for is, what are their pet peeves? Greatest question in the world, especially, what are your pet peeves in a dating relationship? Can't stand clingy people. Really? And they've been blowing your phone up for 5 days before the date. So that's a great question in business. So what are your pet peeves about the vendors you've been working with? I love that question. It's a very soft way to find out about judgment, blame, and criticism. So please use that. All right. And then, as far as, just to recap, love addict and love avoidant, if they're, having to reply to every text message, if they have to end the conversation, you have a love addict. If their profile is very detailed and long, you have a love addict. If their profile is filled with kids and animals, or they talk about that kind of stuff, they're most likely a love avoidant. If they use very few words in their text messaging, if they say they're busy a lot, if they have lots of animals and proclaim their kids are their life, you're dealing with a love avoidant. All right. These are all things to look for. Maybe you didn't even see a profile. Maybe you got set up on a blind date, but these are the things you're looking for. All right. And, and they're busy and all those kinds of things. Then when you learn the dynamics of love addict and love avoidant, which one you are and which one you think you want to spend your time with, dating's easy. Dating's easy. And then you can just go on it. You can, like a lot of times I've been on dates and I know it's not going anywhere, but I'm like, seems like a nice enough person. I'll go have a great conversation. What could it hurt? I was just going to sit home in my sweats. Big deal. So you just start to enjoy people for people, and you don't have to make everything into a relationship. That's the other thing I've learned. so many people, it's the grinder mentality we've all learned, or, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk and all of that advocates, come on, be a grinder, go, 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 chase the relationship, you know, and I'm like, gag me, it'll find you. Just go clean you up. Just go clean you up. And you'll turn the corner and bump into somebody and go, oh, hi, it's you. How are you? Let it find you. Let it find you. And the secret to that is go find yourself first. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I really appreciate you watching, as always. If you have show ideas, things that matter in your life, business or personal, whatever they are, please send them to me. I do this show to give, you know, really give you free insight and help you any way I can. Please don't forget, if you're looking, if you want incredible communication skills in your dating life, your married life, or your business, please come to the event tomorrow. Let me give you that phone number once again. It's at 6 o'clock up in North Scottsdale at the American Center for Natural Medicine. The phone number once again is 480-779-7755. That's 480-779-7755. And you have to call to reserve your seats and get your tickets. So call them first thing in the morning and make sure you're there. And you're going to learn a lot of great stuff. And finally, remember, as I always say, whenever we judge, blame, or criticize, all we're ever doing is talking about the parts of ourselves we have been unwilling to see and unwilling to forgive. But that works in the opposite also. When you see greatness in other people, what you're seeing is the greatness in yourself. And if you have a hard time accepting that, as most people do when I make that comment, most people go, God, I don't know that I'm that great. If that's your struggle, then we need you in the greatness movement. It's made for you. So thanks again for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. We will see you next week. Have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you soon.
I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.
Coach on Fire Radio.